Anatoly, you're afraid of our fleet. You should be. Personally, I give us one chance in three.
Sean Connery plays the commander of a super-secret Soviet nuclear submarine that both the Russians and the Americans want to capture in the hunt for Red October. It's one of 5 new movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first movie is The Hunt for Red October, and this is a slick, intelligent, well-constructed movie version of the best-selling novel by Tom Clancy. Set in the Cold War year of 1984, it tells the story of a renegade Soviet submarine skipper played by Sean Connery, who devises a scheme to defect to the United States and bring the latest Soviet submarine right along with him. Connery's plot begins when he murders a Communist Party political official who is on board as part of a system of checks and balances.
I want you and the doctor to witness this. I'm removing the political officer's missile key. Carry on. And I'm keeping it myself.
Captain, I think we should report this to Red Fleet Command.
I'm afraid that's impossible, Doctor. Our orders are for strict radio silence. Order, sir.
That's all long enough.
Yes, sir. This is most unnerving, Captain. The reason for having 2 missile keys is so that no one man may
what?
May arm the missiles.
Meanwhile, an American intelligence expert played by Alec Baldwin is convinced that Connery is trying to defect with the submarine. Here he meets with James Earl Jones, a Navy admiral, to explain his theory.
Good afternoon, Admiral.
Afternoon, Matthew.
Where are we going anyway?
Briefing for Jeffrey Pelt, President's National Security Advisor. Most of the Joint Chiefs will be there, along with a few other people.
Who's giving the briefing?
You are.
Beneath the sea in the submarine Red October, Connery justifies his plan to the men he trusts.
You had to make a political statement. Or was it something deeper, Captain? Something that made you unable to simply slip away? Was it ego, Captain?
We each have our reasons, Victor. Huh? My own began the day I was handed the blueprints for this ship. A ship which had but one use.
Desperate to prove his point, Baldwin, the American intelligence man, has himself flown to a rendezvous with an American sub that's near the Red October.
Okay, back you go.
And then he tries to convince the American sub skipper, played by Scott Glenn, not to attack Red October.
The Russians will stop at nothing to prevent Ramius from defecting. They are desperate. They've invented this story that he's crazy because they need our help to sink him before he can safely contact us.
Weapons control, I want full safeties. We're so close. I want those fish coming back at us. Full safety, aye, sir.
Captain, I know this man.
In movies like this where you have a lot of different cast members, a little typecasting helps out a lot. And the performances of Connery, Baldwin, and Glenn provide a strong center to the film. What's also a little surprising is how easy the plot is to follow. If you've read Tom Clancy's book, as I have, you may remember what a complex plot it had. In the movie, everything is clear as crystal, and that helps the suspense a lot. There's one strange contradiction about the movie, though. They've done a great job of reproducing the insides of submarines in this movie. They look absolutely authentic, to me anyway, having never been in a submarine. But the underwater shots of the outsides of the subs are sort of murky and disappointing. I don't know, maybe nuclear submarines just plain look like big, bloated gray whales, and there's nothing you can do to make them look any sexier.
Have you been on the outside of a submarine?
Actually, down at the Museum of Science and Industry, but that was a German U-2 boat from World War II, so I'm not exactly up to date.
I think they probably got both parts right. I think that the insides of the submarine, all that stuff, this is a good how-to movie. I think we learn how people operate on a submarine. At the same time, I think that what's interesting is we also learn how the intelligence community works. particularly in the United States. There's a great political meeting with all the admirals, the Joint Chiefs, and a political operative for the president. And it's very well done. And we think we're on the inside, which is the appeal, I understand, of Clancy's books. The other thing that I think is really distinctive about the film is the performance by Alec Baldwin. This is sort of a star-making role. He is not a superhero. He doesn't play it that way. He plays it as a guy who's simply very, very smart and careful and methodical. He isn't boring while doing that, and I thought that was really the strength of the film.
It was good casting, and it was interesting for that particular role that it was a relatively new face. We've seen him before, but a lot of people don't know who he is.
Yes, in other words, if it were a familiar face, for example, if you put Connery in that role, you say, well, there's not going to be any problem here, because he'll obviously solve what needs to be solved. So
it has this in common with the book. It's a smart thriller. In other words, it congratulates you for being smart enough to be able to figure out all the stuff that's going on here, and it's fun on that level.
A lot of extra information. Okay, next film, and it's a music-filled comedy called House Party, following the day in the life of a middle-class black teenager as he dodges his stern father's wrath because he wants to attend a neighborhood house party. But trouble at school presents a roadblock.
You know what? You're going to spend your night tonight thinking about your priorities after you finish your damn homework. That's what you're going to do.
Remember, you said I could go to the party.
All them hoods you got in trouble with today is going to be at that party. And you don't need to be getting yourself in no more trouble.
It's not going to be that type of crowd. Look, all my friends are going to be there.
I don't give a damn if Marvin Gaye going to be there. You won't.
Against his father's wishes, the boy nicknamed Kid manages to sneak away to the party where he is drawn to a couple of girls. Throughout the film's one long day, Kid has an ongoing problem with the neighborhood tough guys.
What you got to say now, punk?
Your Shaolin technique is very good.
This guy think we're joking around with... Go!
Oh, homeboy, you all right, man? It's over already?
Hey, yo, Kid, we had your back.
Yeah, way back.
Oh.
House Party is an attractive-looking film with bright contemporary music, but its story is so wooden, so predictable with its goody-goody boy, strict father, and the party gets out of hand story, all too familiar. There are little nods to social responsibility involving safe sex, but those moments don't save this picture.
Gee, I really disagree with you about this movie, Gene. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it's very fresh, and I don't think, A, that the boy is goody-goody. He certainly is, and he gets in a lot of trouble, and he's got all the normal appetites of any teenager. And I thought the character of the father was especially interesting, because here's a guy who wants to do the right thing by his son. He's not trying to be some strict father, like you say. He's trying to be a good father, and that's what the movie is about. The normal kind of competition between a parent who's worried about the welfare of his child and the kid who, like any kid, wants to go to the party that all of his friends are going to.
Well, I thought that this stuff was very standard. I mean, in other words, I
when
think
have you seen a movie like this about teenagers of any race, let alone black teenagers?
Oh, I think that this is
Can't name one.
Give me a chance.
Please go right ahead. Be my guest.
Go ahead, be my guest. That's the part of you that I really like. I think that the film like 16 Candles or a picture like Risky Business is a much more sophisticated way of presenting the same thing with the tough parents and the kids that want to have a good time. There wasn't a scene in the film that surprised me except the awkward, and I guess they're going to be awkward until we get more of it, the scenes involving the safe sex.
Oh,
that's
come
unusual.
on, now how about this? How about all of the insights it has into the various, the class structure within this black community? The girl who lives in public housing and whether she can be as popular as the girls who live in houses with their families.
The only thing that's fresh is the color.
Coming up next, Heidi and her friends try to save themselves by climbing the Alps, and you are there.
It's a wonderful view. Everyone should see it.
And this is one of those movies that tries to commit suicide by hammering itself over the head with its own good intentions. The movie stars little Juliette Caton as Heidi, a Swiss girl who was sent to a private school in Italy just as World War I is breaking out. Sadly, she says goodbye to her kindly old grandfather and her best friend Peter, who is played by Charlie Sheen and who she hopes to marry someday.
I'm afraid. So I won't see you again.
Don't be silly. You'll be back at Christmas.
Life is happy in the school until the students are thrown out by the Italian army. Schoolmistress Leslie Caron keeps the girls' spirits up until the evil owner of an orphanage shows up to take the girls.
Not children. You will catch your death of cold if you go out dressed that way. Put on your coats and bring a single change of clothing. No teddy bears, no dollies.
The orphanage doesn't turn out too well. It's a forced labor soap factory, and so the brave girls try to escape across the mountains. When the evil orphanage master catches them and tries to drag them back down the mountainside, Charlie Sheen flies to the rescue on his skis. What can you say about Courage Mountain, apart from the fact that it illustrates the principle that no movie with a pet goat in it has ever been any good? This movie is silly and preposterous from one end to the other, with its clean-cut heroines and its villains who twirl their key rings instead of their mustaches. What Charlie Sheen is doing in this movie after making Platoon and Wall Street is a complete mystery to me. Maybe he wanted a paid vacation in the Swiss Alps. I don't know. All the chocolate he could eat. The sad thing about the movie is that it's so scary and depressing. With the orphanage and the child labor and everybody almost being run over by soldiers and horses, that a kid is going to have to be almost as brave as little Heidi just to get through this movie.
I think there are going to be a lot of walkouts from this film of parents who might take younger children. I think it's very scary, but not in any meaningful way. No, I mean, it's brutal. This guy is a torturer of the highest order that's running this orphanage. I mean, it would make you just be terrified that anything would happen to you, that you might be sent away from home in any way. Also, the stuff with the skiing sequence comes in like it's from a travelogue picture. They're just all, you're right, Charlie Sheen, it is absolutely incredible that he's in this picture. I mean, he's playing it as sort of an American pop hero. The picture's just a complete jumble and doesn't work.
It doesn't make any sense in another way, too, because here Heidi and her four little friends are going to have to walk across the Alps from Italy to Switzerland in the middle of the winter.
Right.
And incidentally, they didn't have any snow when they shot this movie, so everybody is covered with snow in a can, which never melts, and they never have any frost on their breath. But forget about that. While they're struggling across the mountains, Leslie Caron is worried about them, so she turns up in the village to ask Heidi's grandfather where they are. Question. How did she get over the mountain? Good question.
Probably flew on the same skis. Coming up next, a comedy called Rosalie Goes Shopping, the story of an enterprising homemaker who builds her entire life around the freedom her credit cards provide. Our next film is a comedy called Rosalie Goes Shopping, made by the West German filmmaker Percy Adlon, known for his colorful films Sugar Baby and Baghdad Cafe. This film is set in Arkansas and follows the adventures of an immigrant German woman married to a crop duster pilot. While he dusts crops, she spends money, lots of it, through her many credit cards and through writing rubber checks.
Morning, son. I'm glad that you came by directly, Mrs. Greenspace. Bert from Farmers Flight Service just called. He forgot to write down the number of the check.
At regular intervals, Rosalie confesses her spendthrift ways to a priest played by Judge Reinhold. She seems to think that as long as she confesses her sins, she can continue to commit more.
What does your conscience tell you?
My conscience has never felt so good.
That's Marianne Segebrecht as Rosalie. Her husband is played by Brad Davis, and he lets Rosalie do her thing while he enjoys flying. The real strength of the movie is in scenes like that flying sequence, so colorfully shot by Percy Adlon. He's one of those gifted filmmakers who seemingly doesn't know how to make an uninteresting shot. But I don't think the story works as well as the look of the film. Obviously, we're living in a time of easy credit, too easy credit, and that's not a fresh topic of discussion, and I don't think Rosalie Goes Shopping adds anything to it. The way he tells the story visually, though, that is special.
Well, I think it adds something new to it, and that is that Marianne Segebrecht, who is such an interesting actress, handles everything with such a wonderful charm as she's cheating the bank and stealing tickets from her parents and mortgaging her children's possessions and kiting checks and so forth.
Let me ask you.
And at the same time, she's trying, as an immigrant to America, to do all these things in order to provide her family with this wonderful, almost museum piece quality of the perfect little American home.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. She is a very good actress, and she's very intelligent, and you can see that. It's not her physical look that makes her special. Do you think she doesn't know what she's doing? You see, I think the film is trying to have it both ways, that she it's trying to be a comment on America and the easy credit. At the same time, is she innocent or not? I think she would know. As I read her, I think she would know exactly what she's doing.
She's into denial, Gene. What she's doing is she knows what she's doing, yet she doesn't want to admit what she's doing.
She's into comic denial, not real denial.
It's like she does it, and then she kind of forgets that she did it. That's what I mean. But anyway, I did enjoy the picture. I think I enjoyed it more than you did.
You did enjoy it more than me if you bought the story.
Okay.
Coming up next, a car dealer is married to the most beautiful woman in town, but he falls in love with his plain-looking secretary in Too Beautiful for You.
The next movie is named Too Beautiful for You, and it stars the remarkable Gerard Depardieu. This is a French actor who seems to be able to play almost any kind of character. He's in a lot of movies, and his range is great, and his quality is always very high. His recent really big roles were quite different. He played the hunchback farmer who is robbed of his land in Jean de Florette. Then he plays the sculptor Rodin in the Oscar-nominated film Camille Claudel, which is around right now. And now here he is, a successful BMW dealer in a provincial French town. Quite a reach. He's happily married, but one day a new secretary turns up at work, and both he and the woman are struck by a thunderbolt of love at first sight.
Moi, j'ai envie de toucher ta peau.
That's Josie Amblasco as the new and great love of his life. He's obsessed by her, and he tries to catch her on her way home. Some of the best scenes in this movie simply express that woman's happiness.
Je viens de faire l'amour pendant 3 heures. 3 heures inoubliables.
Certain scenes might be fantasies, including this one, in which the film imagines a shocking public breach of good manners.
Pourquoi elle me gifle? Pourquoi elle me gifle?
Si tu trompes ta femme, c'est tout ce que tu mérites.
Je trompe ma femme, c'est son affaire. C'est à elle de gifler.
Now, with that scene and a few others like it, the film drifts in and out of reality. We're not quite sure we're seeing what really happens or only Depardieu's fantasies as he tries to imagine the repercussions of his adultery. I like the film's simple scenes the best, the ones in which the woman speaks openly and glowingly about her love, and two lovers sit around almost goofy with romance. Depardieu is wonderful in this film as the love-struck car salesman, but the movie really belongs to Josie Amblasco, who may not be everyone's idea of great beauty, but helps us to understand the meaning of the title, Too Beautiful for You.
I think this film is great in two ways. You focused on what it's like to have this fascination with this person who is at least willing to be with you in love and in bed and all that, and there is great dialogue between them about that. Also, the film, I think, is very good at showing the brittle quality of someone who carries the weight of being so staggeringly beautiful that it's almost like a chain around her in some way. I think that this is a picture that's very good as it's made. I also think it's a natural for an American film company to rip off and make with American stars, because American movies don't often really deal with sexuality in the way that this film does, or with the problems of physical beauty and apparent ugliness.
I didn't mean to give you the impression that I didn't like the film. I just said that I like the simple scenes more than the fantasy scenes. At the beginning of this film, I was thinking just almost exactly what you just said. This is a film about adult feelings and about adults who are able to express their feelings in adult language, including the language of passion and the language of the mind. American movies often seem to be about people who are just a little bit slow, who speak in terms of cliches and in terms of simple ideas as if nobody will understand them if they express what they're really feeling. This movie really comes to you and says, here are people up here on the screen.
Well, it also comes to you with a rather obvious subject matter that most movies never even touch, which is the physical look of someone, which is obviously they carry around it all the time. It's always on people's minds. It's never spoken about in such a frank manner. It's a wonderful subject idea, and it's been executed very well. In fact, the challenge is, if Americans do rip it off, will they be able to do it as well? They might not. They might chicken out. Now let's recap the movies we reviewed on this show. 2 thumbs up for The Hunt for Red October, featuring a terrific performance by Alec Baldwin as the American intelligence agent trying to help capture a renegade Russian submarine. A split vote on House Party, the musical comedy about black teenage life. I found the characters all too familiar. Roger thought they and the movie were fresh. 2 thumbs down, way down for Courage Mountain, the horrifying Heidi sequel. A split vote on Rosalie Goes Shopping, a slice of spendthrift Americana. I like the look of the film more than the story. Roger enjoyed both. 2 thumbs up for Too Beautiful for You, the French story of how beauty is often more than skin deep. And so Too Beautiful for You and The Hunt for Red October, I think, are the really distinctive films in this week's list.
And I think it would be a shame if people overlook House Party, which I do think is a special movie. That's it for this week. Next week we'll be back with the romantic comedy Joe versus the Volcano, starring Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, and Bad Influence with